Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Eager Beaver channel. Today, we are here again at Conestee Nature Preserve, and we're very excited to have you with us. Now, today, we're going to take things on a slightly different trail. We're actually going to be going off-trail today, in particular because we happen to know of just a few very interesting spots with some modern archaeological excavations going on in place that we'd like to share with you. Further, we'd also like to talk a little more about the impact that this park has had due to Hurricane Helen. All of that said, please come along with us today.
And keeping watch over us today is our very good friend and fellow cameraman. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Tauntaun. Hello. Conestee Nature Preserve itself is a 640-acre 501c3 fully run charitable park open to the entire general public of Greenville, South Carolina and the world. Unlike our previous video, this time we won't be crossing the bridge. We're actually going to be making our way somewhere around the right side perimeter of it. To be a touch more specific, we're beginning our hike here at Raccoon Run before we go off trail. Before Hurricane Helen impacted this area so terribly, there were over 13 miles of hiking and cycling track available to the public. Further, there were 11 observation decks which allowed visitors to come and view over 226 types of different bird species. Further, you're able to view a variety of different environments, including wetlands, highlands, grasslands, and meadows. Although the hurricane has negatively impacted the park, I would still like to say that this is an incredibly beautiful place to come out and be in nature. Further, it's very easily traversable for most any and every age group and classification of skill.
We'd really like to remind everyone that here at Conestee Park, this is a 501c3 charitable organization, which means that they're largely not funded by any government, nor are they funded by the state. It is entirely by charity that they receive their funds. Here in this moment, we'd also like to ask that for anyone who has money to give, please consider giving to here at Conestee Park. They've been incredibly devastated by the widespread damages of Hurricane Helen. As you can see behind me here, all of these trees that have been toppled, these were all cut by volunteers alone just to open up the paths. And of the roughly 13 to 14 miles of hiking ground, there's only about 5 to 10 that are easily accessible to most people. There are many areas that we need to currently open up, so please, if you have the money to help them, do so at this time, and thank you.
We don't work for Conestee Park or for any government in that matter. However, if you are able to donate and or volunteer, please consider helping them. Their goal for the current rebuild is just a little over $15,000, so please, if you can, help. Our path here is on the very light blue line, and as you can see, it's a little boring once you start looking up at the giant dirt mound which blocks out society. All of that said, there are some interesting sights to see right next to it.
Hi. Isn't it crazy when you talk to yourself?
We very quickly made our way out of this section and into a more adventurous side of the park, where Helen had hit.
This here is another example of the Hurricane Helen damage in the area. Obviously, most people wouldn't be able to reasonably get through this. Reasonably. See what I mean? So right here, what we have is known as a rock wash. Over there happens to be the actual creek of the area, and oftentimes this is a flood ground. That's why you see so many small forms of grass and brush out here. In turn, a lot of this rock is brought up because of that flooding. Something funny though that you'll also realize is that, again, this is man-made concrete. These are not naturally occurring rocks. And that's because Conestee, back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, was a large-scale dumping ground.
You can see as you go over the rock wash the mix of asphalt, construction concrete, and brick that are thrown about here. Fortunately, none of this is bad for the environment. However, seeing this house sighting is a bit strange.
Where we are right now, so close to the creek bed, is actually a flood zone. All of this sand and silt was not initially here. You're talking about thousands of tons of this were dredged up from the storm and brought forward during Hurricane Helen. This entire area was near leveled when you look at the trees that have come down, as well as the surprising array of trash that you'll find from across the years that have now been archaeologically dug up by Mother Nature herself.
Going a bit deeper into the flood zone of the Reedy River, we make our way into a sandy terrain. Further, a lot of what you're going to see washing up is a bit of a strange form of lither and archaeology.
Here is a very rather cool ranch find. This is a bag of crisps or tortilla chips from 1983. That's an interesting find that was dredged up from the storm. We're going to throw this away, but that being said, take a look at this bizarre historical find.
The amount of trash that can be dredged up in the Reedy River from the city of Greenville is almost impressive, although it's also a touch disheartening. If you are able to aid us in the cleanup out here, please do so. Now let's navigate to an area which will show you the real magnitude of the floodwater and storm.
So I am 6'2" in height, and this embankment here is roughly 6 foot itself. So that means that the flooding that happened here to push as far as it did to the airport alone was going to be over 7 feet. The flooding here was incredible. What happened really is devastating, and you don't see a storm like that out here very often.
With sustained winds being up to 72 miles per hour and the flooding within the Reedy River lasting over 3 days in swelling alone, it's incredible to think that recovery has been as swift as it has. And from there, we made our way out of the bush and decided to head back to the main road. However, all of that said, we weren't going to stay there very long.
So, do all of you remember when I said that Conestee was historically a dumping ground? I have a really great, fun, historical example of you for some modern-day archaeology, but we have to go off-trail to find it. See? It's rough.
And directly after that graceful landing is our first archaeological find of the day.
And that right there is a piece of AC duct, probably from the 1960s to 70s. And that means it's been sitting there for about 4 to 5 decades, depending.
When you come out here and start exploring, it's almost like going through the trail of a shipwreck.
And right here, we have a hot water heater, roughly from the 50s and 60s, which has now, thanks to the storm, had a home here at Conestee.
Part of me has always been bothered by how much litter you'll find out here from the dump site, but the other part of me is so fascinated because I feel like someone threw my grandma's house out into the woods.
This right here is a near complete 1950s oven. Again, isn't it fantastic to see the archaeological discoveries that we have thanks to a storm? This here, I have no idea what it is, but it looks like a home for metal bees. If anyone in the comments knows what this is, please let us know.
And here's another fun find from the 1950s. It appears to be a family oven dropped on the hillside. Along with this oven is a Quaker oil heater, which in this case is model number 3210M2. And here's an example of what it looked like back in the year of 1950. It is incredible to see how nature reclaims so quickly.
Please, if you have the time, if you're nearby, if you don't even have the money to give the Conestee, please consider volunteering here. They can use all the help that they need right now in the cleanup efforts. As you can see, so much of this has been brought up through the storm. So, if you have it available, please come out and give some of your time. Where we're standing right now, what almost looks like a valley, is actually a naturally made protective embankment. This area that you see here has flooded so many times in the past that it has rather created its own protective dike, so to speak. Down there is the waterway. Up here is the embankment to protect it, and down there, in turn, is the second flood zone. Take a look.
Although this may be obvious to some, this secondary flood zone almost works like a filter, and therefore is why so much trash winds up in this area, though it also makes for some strange outcomes.
Look, Mom, they have 2 refrigerators. We don't have to buy one anymore.
And from there, it only gets more interesting.
We've listed off an incredible cadre of items to be found out here, but this might just be the absolute epicenter of the either treasure or graveyard, depending on how you want to look at it. There are a ridiculous amount here of wash machines, old microwaves, dryers. We have refrigerators, hot water heaters all over here from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Just take a look and pan.
For those of you who are concerned about the fact that we're not cleaning this up, I would have to state that in order to properly recycle all of this, it would be an industrial and Herculean effort. However, for those of you interested in the history and archaeology of these items, it's incredible to see what was thrown away by our forefathers in the past. This vast assortment of microwaves, ovens, sinks, dishwashers, and a variety of other full metal machines just sitting out here are a testament to how items used to be built. Further, they are just kind of fun to look at. Even though these items are only roughly anywhere from 80 to 40 years old, they still serve as a time capsule of a period long since gone. Although their owners have disappeared, these items somehow still remain in the wild. It feels post-apocalyptic to a certain degree.
In this little icebox here, there could be the secrets to eternal life, the fountain of youth, or even the Ark of the Covenant, but we can't get in because it's frozen shut due to years of rust and mud. What a pity. If you were hoping to get your laundry done today, I hate to inform you that's not gonna happen. If you were hoping to get your money out of this deposit box, it's not going to happen, guys. I'm sorry, your money's as good as gone. Typical of most investments. This happens to be a very nice paddock gate. Unfortunately, it's not keeping anything in or anyone out. This is a very fun find for all of our tech nerds out there. Come zoom in with me here. You can see right here original bulbs, which is fascinating, as well as different varieties of wires and capacitors here. We even have heat vents and so much copper to go through. Unfortunately, none of it's worth anything anymore. But seeing these little Nixie tubes is fascinating.
Now, I can't tell you much about this, but I can tell you it was made in Chicago. Does anyone ever remember when products were actually made in America? And here's another crazy find. It's an original white wall tire. It's a little worn out, but maybe you could still use it. I don't know. As much as there is to see out there, and further, as many one-liners as we could possibly shoot off for a video, it was time to leave this section of the landfill. However, there are even more exciting areas just up ahead. Going further into the forest and following the riverbank here, we find even more interesting sights, some of the best to be honest.
Ladies and gentlemen, this gold mine just never stops out here. Come take a look.
Just above the rubbish heap landslide is a 1960-something wash machine. Although the chrome, side panels, and buttons have all faded and or disappeared, it's incredible to see an intact convex glass viewport still on this.
While out here doing some modern archaeology, we've come across a treasure trove of old bicycles. You're gonna have to give us a minute to go through some of this relatively safely, but we're gonna try and pull a few of them out and talk on them for you, so be right back with you in a second. Now here is a very fun find. This right here is an original children's bicycle. Take a look at this. How old this is. When we brush some of this off here, we still have the original pedal on this side. Over here, we have the original kickstand, now completely frozen in place. We also have with this half of the original seat, which was made of metal and spring, so a very uncomfortable saddle seat perhaps. But this is incredible. We are not able, unfortunately, to find any print on this for whether or not this was something like a Schwinn or one of the more modern takes on a Huffy. But judging by the seat here, this bicycle would have been very popular in the late 40s into the early 50s, especially for children. Just take another look at this.
And here's a bit of a glamour shot for those who'd like to get up close with this classic. Again, take a look at that spring saddle seat, and then just the beauty of this original red paint job. It really is amazing to see what we used to ride back in our childhood, isn't it? I imagine that before this thing found itself in the landfill, it had quite a few thousand miles on it.
This one is even more fun. You can see the original chromed out rear fender on this, as well as just the fun body style of the pipe here. You have these supporting struts and the main frame bar overall. We also get a really cool look here of what were the original handlebars, also chromed out. Sadly, it did break, and it was broken before we pulled it. I would like that known. But you can see just how high this was to ride back in the day. And for any kid, or frankly adult in need, this would have been a fantastic ride. During the 30s, 40s, and 50s, these bicycles were absolutely worth their weight in gold. This is really an incredible find as well, because it has both of the original pedals down here with their original rubber mounting. Further, it still has its actual kickstand, and it has the original chain guard shield here, which is super fun. I mean, you really don't see something quite like that out here in nature very often. If I could date this, I would say again, it was probably the late 40s to early and mid 50s, depending. Really a fantastic example, though, of what people used to ride. We'll leave these at the side of the road for any kind of collector now and or cleanup teams. Unfortunately, we can't carry it with us because our packs are heavy. But these are just absolutely exquisite, and I'll be sure to give you a few more glory shots of these beauties before we go.
Again, it really is something else to find these out in a park, much less in the condition that they're in. It's something else entirely just to get the opportunity to be up close with an artifact like this. Certainly this is no high-dollar item, even though it does have its single speed and both pedals attached. It's still just fun to see in general. And here the two bikes are side by side for your own viewing pleasure. Keep in mind again, we couldn't take these with us just due to their own weight in the trail that we're on, but it's really incredible to find these just out in the wild. Now, for those of you who are a bit tired of seeing us just scrounge through scrap all day, I would like you to know that we did actually find some items related to nature herself. Let me show you now. Before you here is a deer skull, and this fellow was not particularly old when he passed away. You can tell by the lack of points he has on his antlers here. You'll also notice that his antlers have been chewed on to a certain degree. This is most likely either due to teething or the fact that animals needed a bit of calcium. Now, we didn't have the space to take this skull with us, but that being said, it was an incredibly cool find. So thank you, Mother Nature, for that. And here's another find which admittedly is simple, but it speaks to the child in me as being a cool find.
So that is a very cool find. For all of our avian fans out there, this here is a form of a raptor feather, and you can tell just by how sharp the very peak is of this feather. That being said, by the coloration, I can't tell if this comes from something like a red-shouldered hawk, or if it's going to be more common like a vulture. I'm leaning towards vulture, but regardless, it's a cool find, and it makes for a feather in my cap.
As fun as our day was, eventually all good things must come to an end, and after having reached the climax of our hike, it's now time to go and give you our final thoughts.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the Eager Beaver team out here today at Conestee again. We'd really like to ask again that if you have the available funds, please donate to this amazing park. As funny as it may be to see some of this old age archaeological litter hanging about, there is an incredible necessity for cleanup throughout the park, especially when it comes to the likes of chip bags and old bottles. Further, I would like to bring home the point that Conestee is accessible to everyone, for the adventurous spirit to a very easy beginner, to families and the elderly. It's a beautiful place for a walk, to take your dogs, to bring your children, and just look at birds and be in nature once more. If you have the time, come out and donate some of your money, donate some of your time, and also just partake in this beautiful place that brings solace to so many. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed today's content, please like and subscribe. Further, if you have ideas for other videos, please let us know. We're always happy to talk on them. From here on, this is the Eager Beaver signing off. Until next time, friends.